Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're tackling a question that really gets to the heart of the UFO mystery.
Uh-huh.
Are these sightings we've been hearing about for centuries just random events?
Right.
Or could they be signs of something much bigger?
Yeah.
Like a system that's deliberately shaping how we see the world and maybe even how our culture evolves.
It's a big question, isn't it?
It is, and luckily we've got some incredible source material to help us unpack this idea.
Absolutely.
We're talking historical accounts of UFO encounters,
Right.
research on altered states of consciousness, even some theories on how these might all be connected.
I think when you look at the history of UFO sightings, there's definitely a recurring theme of encounters that feel almost staged, like they're designed to get a specific reaction out of people or to plant certain ideas.
I'm interested already.
Yeah.
What do you mean by staged? Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's look at the Nuremberg event from 1561. This wasn't just some blurry lights in the sky.
Right.
There's a woodcut from that time that shows a whole aerial battle with cylindrical objects and spheres flying around.
Wow.
There's even what looks like a large triangular craft crashing outside the city.
In the 1500s, a triangular craft.
It makes you wonder if this was just a natural phenomenon. Wouldn't the images be less...
I see what you mean.
Too specific?
That's a good point. You'd think so. It's like they were trying to send a message, but what kind of message would a sky battle even be back then?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
But it does make you think that whoever or whatever is behind these UAPs might have been interacting with us for way longer than we realize.
Much longer than we think.
And their methods might be a lot more subtle than just showing up in a spaceship and saying, "Take me to your leader."
So instead of a grand entrance, it's more like they're dropping hints, nudging us collectively in a certain direction.
Yeah.
I can see how that ties into the idea of a control system. But where do altered states of consciousness fit into all of this?
Well, a lot of reports of UFO encounters, especially the ones involving alleged abductions, they describe experiences that really blur the lines between reality and dreams.
Interesting.
People talk about feeling paralyzed, having vivid hallucinations.
Oh, wow.
Even communicating telepathically with beings that seem to exist outside of normal space and time.
Okay, that's where things start to feel a little sci-fi, but also a bit creepy.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that UFOs might be able to manipulate our consciousness?
It's definitely a possibility worth thinking about. We're only just starting to understand the full potential of our own consciousness. I mean, think about the effects of meditation, hypnosis, or even certain psychedelics.
Yeah.
They can completely change how we experience reality, unlock hidden memories.
Absolutely.
And even trigger experiences that feel profoundly spiritual or otherworldly. What if UAPs are somehow tapping into those same neurological pathways and influencing our thoughts, our beliefs?
Oh, wow.
And maybe even our cultural narratives.
Okay, you've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's back up a bit. You mentioned that the history of UFO sightings supports the idea of a control system.
I did.
Where do we even begin to unpack centuries of sightings?
It might be best to start with the definition of a UFO.
Okay.
I mean, the term itself, unidentified flying object, doesn't automatically mean aliens.
You're right.
It simply means something is in the sky that we can't explain right away.
Yeah.
And that's where our human tendency to fill in the blanks comes into play.
So we see something strange, and our brains naturally try to make sense of it by fitting it into a story we already know, like aliens visiting from another planet.
Exactly. And that narrative has been shaped by our culture, especially by science fiction.
So it's no surprise that when people see a light moving erratically in the sky, they often jump to the conclusion that it's an alien spacecraft. But doesn't that dismiss the possibility that some of these sightings are genuinely unexplained?
Of course not.
I mean, there are credible reports from pilots, military personnel,
Yeah.
even astronauts who've witnessed things they couldn't explain.
Absolutely. Not all UFO sightings can be attributed to misidentified planes, weather balloons, or hoaxes. There's definitely a group of cases that remain genuinely perplexing. They just defy conventional explanations.
Those are the ones that really get people talking.
Yeah.
And make us question what we think we know.
Exactly.
So we've got these unexplained phenomena in the sky. Our human tendency to interpret those phenomena through the lens of our culture. And the possibility that some of these UAPs might be capable of influencing our consciousness.
Yeah.
How do we start connecting those dots without falling into wild speculation?
Well, one way is to look for patterns. Are there recurring themes, symbols, or behaviors associated with these UAPs that might suggest a deliberate intent? Do these sightings coincide with specific historical events, technological advancements, or shifts in human consciousness?
I like that approach. It's like we're playing detective looking for clues that might reveal a hidden agenda.
Exactly.
But to do that, we need to understand the full spectrum of UFO sightings.
You're absolutely right. So let's start by taking a closer look at some of the most famous and intriguing UFO cases throughout history.
Okay, buckle up, listeners. We're about to dive into some classic UFO lore. What's first?
Well, you can't talk about UFOs without mentioning the 1947 Kenneth Arnold sighting.
Ah, yes. The businessman who saw 9 crescent-shaped objects zipping past Mount Rainier.
That's the one.
What's so interesting about that case?
Well, for one thing, Arnold was a respected pilot and businessman, not someone prone to flights of fancy.
Right.
He described the objects moving in a way unlike any known aircraft, like saucers skipping on water.
Wow.
And his sighting sparked a wave of similar reports across the country, turning UFOs into a national phenomenon almost overnight.
It's like that sighting opened the floodgates, making people more aware of the possibility of something unusual in our skies.
Absolutely.
So from a simple sighting, we start to see the narrative of advanced technology, potentially extraterrestrial, taking root. What comes next in our historical tour of UFOs?
Well, just a few weeks after Arnold's sighting, we had the infamous Roswell incident.
Roswell, the granddaddy of all UFO conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
What makes this one so different from, say, Arnold's sighting?
It's the alleged physical evidence. While Arnold's sighting was based on visual observation, Roswell involved tangible debris.
Oh, I see.
Strange metallic materials that some claimed were not of earthly origin.
Right.
And then there's the military's initial press release claiming they had recovered a flying disc, quickly followed by a retraction and a new explanation involving a weather balloon. That sudden shift in the story fueled decades of speculation about a government cover-up.
So we've gone from unexplained sightings to potential physical evidence and the possibility of government secrecy.
Right.
And all this in just a few short years. It's amazing how quickly the UFO narrative expanded.
And it didn't stop there. The 1950s and 60s saw a surge in UFO sightings, often accompanied by reports of strange lights, unusual maneuvers, and even close encounters with alleged beings.
This is when those iconic images of flying saucers really took hold in our collective imagination.
That's
right?
exactly
the kind of imagery that still dominates UFO lore today.
But as we move through the history of UFO sightings, you'll start to notice a shift. The focus moves away from simple shapes in the sky toward more complex descriptions. Interactions that seem to defy our understanding of physics. And even encounters that blur the lines between the physical and the psychological.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all ties back to the idea of a control system.
Yeah.
It's like the UFO phenomenon itself is evolving, becoming more intricate and layered over time, almost like a story unfolding in stages.
And that unfolding story, with its combination of unexplained phenomena, cultural interpretation, and potential psychological manipulation, is what we're going to unravel in this deep dive.
Our listeners, we've laid the groundwork. Explored the origins of the modern UFO era.
Absolutely.
And hinted at the possibility of something much bigger at play. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive into some of the most compelling UFO cases that continue to baffle researchers and fuel the debate about what's really going on in our skies.
Welcome back.
Back again.
So last time we were talking about how the UFO phenomenon seems to have evolved from simple sightings to these more intricate encounters.
Right.
And I think that really sets the stage for looking at a few cases that make you question if there's a pattern, a design to these events.
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
All right, let's fast forward a few decades from Roswell to 1980.
1980.
We're going over to Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England.
Okay, Rendlesham Forest.
Where something happened that's become a cornerstone of UFO lore, the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Ah, yes. The one with the U.S. Air Force personnel stationed at a base near the forest. What makes Rendlesham so compelling?
It wasn't just lights in the sky.
Right.
Multiple military personnel reported seeing a strange triangular craft land in the forest.
In the forest.
They even approached it, described feeling its warmth and seeing strange symbols on its surface.
Really?
This wasn't a fleeting glimpse.
No.
We're talking extended observation by trained military personnel.
You're listening to Echoes of Insight, where we dive deep into the topics shaping our world. From the planet and politics to health, consciousness, economy, and alternative lifestyles. If you're enjoying the journey, make sure to subscribe and share this podcast with others who love exploring new perspectives.
Okay, that's already pretty wild. But didn't they just dismiss it as a misidentified lighthouse or something later on?
While some explanations have been offered, none of them fully account for all the details.
Oh.
For example, physical traces were found at the alleged landing site.
Like what?
Scorched earth, broken tree branches, and even increased radiation levels. This wasn't just a visual hallucination.
So there's actual evidence.
There's tangible evidence that something unusual occurred.
Okay, so we've got credible witnesses, prolonged observation, and even physical traces. That pushes it beyond a simple case of mistaken identity, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Okay.
And it ties into what we were discussing earlier about the possibility of a deliberate staging of these events.
Yeah.
If someone or something wanted to leave a lasting impression, wouldn't a close encounter with physical evidence be a more effective method than just a quick flash of light in the sky?
That makes sense. You're planting seeds of doubt, challenging our conventional explanations.
Right.
What other cases support this idea of a deliberate design?
Let's jump ahead to 2004.
Okay.
Off the coast of San Diego.
All right.
The USS Nimitz, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, along with its carrier strike group, had a series of encounters with a UAP that's now become famous.
Yeah.
The Tic-Tac UFO.
Oh, yeah, the one that was captured on infrared video by the Nazi pilots.
Exactly.
The object that looked like, well, a tic-tac.
That's right.
And moved in ways that seemed impossible.
Exactly. This wasn't just a visual sighting.
Right.
The UAP was tracked on multiple radar systems.
Right. Confirming
its presence and its bizarre flight characteristics.
Wow.
It descended tens of thousands of feet in seconds.
Whoa.
Hovered. And then zipped off at incredible speeds, all without any visible means of propulsion.
It's mind-boggling.
Even experienced pilots like Commander David Fravor, who witnessed the object firsthand, were baffled.
Okay, so we have a highly advanced UAP observed by trained military personnel and tracked on sophisticated radar systems.
Right.
This is starting to sound less like a random occurrence and more like a demonstration of capabilities, wouldn't you say?
It's hard to argue otherwise.
Yeah.
And this ties into our earlier discussion about how technology influences our perception of UFOs.
Right.
The fact that the Tic-Tac was tracked on military-grade radar lends a level of credibility that's hard to dismiss.
Right.
It forces us to ask if this wasn't a secret government project, and what was it, and where did that technology come from?
Those are good questions. I'm seeing a pattern here. From a landed craft in a forest to a physics-defying object tracked on radar.
Yeah.
These cases point towards something beyond our current understanding. But how does all of this connect to the idea of a control system that's influencing our perception and culture?
Well, let's consider the context of these sightings.
Okay.
Rendlesham Forest occurred during the height of the Cold War, a time of intense geopolitical tension.
Yeah.
The Tic-Tac encounter happened in the early 2000s, a period marked by rapid technological advancement and a renewed interest in space exploration.
Okay.
Is it possible that these UAPs are appearing at specific moments in history to nudge our collective consciousness in a certain direction?
It's an intriguing idea. Are you suggesting that these UAPs are trying to wake us up to something?
Maybe.
To challenge our assumptions about what's possible?
It's certainly a possibility.
Wow.
Think about it. What better way to shake up our worldview than to demonstrate capabilities that defy our understanding of physics and technology?
Yeah. So instead of a blatant invasion, it's more like a subtle nudge, a cosmic tap on the shoulder to make us question everything we thought we knew.
Precisely.
I like that.
And the more we try to explain these events away, the more questions they raise. This, in turn, fuels more research, more speculation, and ultimately a deeper exploration of our place in the cosmos. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of discovery.
But if we're going down this path, we have to consider the possibility that these UAPs aren't just benign observers.
Right.
What if they have an agenda that goes beyond simply making us think?
Okay.
What if they're actively trying to manipulate us? To control our perception of reality?
That's where the concept of altered states of consciousness comes into play.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
As we mentioned earlier, many UFO encounters involve experiences that blur the lines between reality and altered states. People report feeling paralyzed, having vivid hallucinations, even communicating telepathically with beings that seem to exist outside of normal space and time.
Those classic abduction stories.
Exactly. Could this be evidence of UAPs directly interacting with our consciousness?
Interesting.
Manipulating our perceptions?
Wow.
Even implanting ideas.
Okay, now we're getting into some seriously mind-bending territory.
Oh, right.
But before we delve deeper into that,
sure,
let's take a step back and explore another angle, the role of government secrecy.
Okay.
Could it be that some of these unexplained UAPs are actually secret government projects?
That's a popular theory.
And the lack of transparency is what's fueling the speculation and conspiracy theories.
All right, so we've explored some seriously compelling UFO cases that just don't seem to have those conventional explanations.
Yeah.
Now we're diving into those murky waters of government secrecy.
Right.
Could it be that they know more about these UAPs than they're letting on?
The idea of a government cover-up is like deeply embedded in UFO lore.
It is.
It's a theme that's been fueled by decades of official denials.
Yeah, conflicting information and the enduring mystery around events like Roswell.
You're right. Every time the government tries to downplay or dismiss UFO sightings, it seems to backfire.
It does.
Making people more suspicious and fueling all those conspiracy theories.
Exactly.
It's like they're adding fuel to the fire without realizing it.
It definitely creates a sense of distrust.
Yeah.
And that distrust is further amplified by the fact that governments have a history of keeping secrets.
They do.
Especially when it comes to national security. Think about the Cold War, the development of the atomic bomb.
Right.
All those black budget programs that operated in the shadows for years.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
It wouldn't be surprising if the government were handling the UFO issue with a similar level of secrecy.
So are we talking about a scenario where the government might have recovered crashed UAPs?
Possibly.
Maybe even reverse engineered some of their technology.
Could be.
And is keeping it all under wraps to avoid mass panic or to maintain a strategic advantage?
It's a possibility that can't be ruled out. And it's a possibility that's been given more weight in recent years by whistleblower testimonies.
You're talking about people like David Grush,
Yeah.
the former intelligence officer who claimed the government has recovered and is analyzing non-human technology.
Exactly. Grush's claims are certainly controversial.
They are.
But they've brought the issue of government secrecy to the forefront of the UFO debate.
To the forefront.
And he's not the only one. Other whistleblowers have come forward with similar allegations, claiming that the government has been actively concealing information about UAPs for decades.
But let's play devil's advocate for a moment. If the government does have this kind of knowledge,
right,
wouldn't it be justified in keeping it secret?
Yeah.
Imagine the potential chaos if they were to just announce that we're being visited by extraterrestrial civilizations with technology far beyond our own.
That's the argument often used to justify government secrecy.
Yeah.
The need to prevent mass panic, to maintain social order,
Right.
and to protect national security. And there's definitely some logic to that. A sudden revelation of alien contact could have profound and unpredictable consequences for our society.
It could.
Yeah.
But wouldn't the lack of transparency ultimately be more harmful in the long run?
I mean,
the more the government tries to control the narrative,
right.
the more distrust they breed,
Yeah.
and the more fertile the ground becomes for misinformation and conspiracy theories.
You raise a valid point. Secrecy can create a vacuum
A vacuum.
that's quickly filled by speculation,
Yeah.
fear,
Right.
and sometimes even paranoia.
Interesting.
And that can be far more destabilizing than an open and honest dialogue about what's really going on.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah.
We've got credible UFO sightings that defy conventional explanation,
Right.
the possibility of government secrecy,
Yeah.
and the potential for these UAPs to be influencing our consciousness in ways we don't fully understand.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to process, and it's hard to know what to believe.
It's true. This is a complex issue with no easy answers. But I think the key takeaway is that we need to move beyond the fear and the secrecy.
Absolutely.
And embrace a more open and scientific approach to understanding this phenomenon.
You're saying we need more transparency from governments?
That's a good start.
More research from scientists?
Yeah.
And a more informed and nuanced public discourse about UAPs?
Exactly. We need to break down the walls of secrecy and encourage collaboration between governments, scientists, and the public if we want to unravel this mystery.
And maybe, just maybe, by doing so, we'll discover something truly profound about ourselves, our place in the universe, and the very nature of reality itself. Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of UFOs.
It does.
And the possibility that they're part of a larger control system influencing human perception and culture. We've explored the history of sightings.
We have.
Examined compelling cases.
Yeah.
Delved into the potential role of government secrecy.
Right.
And considered the mind-bending implications of altered states of consciousness.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We encourage you to continue your own exploration of this fascinating topic. Keep an open mind.
Absolutely.
Question everything.
Question everything.
And never stop seeking the truth. Because as we've learned today, sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries lie hidden just beyond the realm of what we think we know.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep looking up.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Echoes of Insight. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who loves exploring big ideas. Together, let's keep the conversation going. See you next time.